Welcome to On a Tree by a River, the Tame Valley Wetlands project to bring back a bird on the brink, the willow tit, Britain's most endangered resident bird. And for vlog 2, it's the willow tit itself we're going to concentrate on. Let's start though by looking at all 7 of the UK's true tit species. I've come to the RSPB Middleton Lakes Reserve to encounter our first and largest of the family. The great tit. Reaching up to 14 centimetres in length and very bold in nature and plumage, with a dominant black face mask, white cheeks and a primary yellow breast split with a black centre stripe. Next, probably our most unique looking member, the long-tailed tit. Small with a pinkish hue and often a social and busy bird with lots and lots to say. The third of our tit family ID guide is undoubtedly our most familiar, the blue tit. 12 centimetres of cobalt blue, green and yellow, often accompanied with a high-pitched tittering. A truly striking bird for our fourth member, the crested tit. Similar in size and nature only to the blue tit, but plumage of dark brown, pale belly and stunning salt and pepper face and crest, but only found in the Caledonian forests of Scotland. Far more widespread nationally, though not as common as blue and grey, is the coal tit, another black-masked, white-cheeked bird, but small with a distinct white stripe up the nape. The marsh tit is one crucially often confused with our featured willow tit. There are though some good pointers to differentiate the two. Marsh tit having a more slender neck, a cocoa powder brown back, more often without altering shades. But probably the most important marsh tit identifier is a pale spot to the base of the upper mandible or beak. The willow tit itself is quite compact looking, with often what is described as a bull neck. Its cocoa powder brown back can appear to have paler elements, and crucially, there is no pale spot to the beak. We will look more closely at its call in the coming vlogs as the courtship and breeding season approaches. To discover more of our star bird, let's head over to Lady Walk Reserve and meet 2 guys who know its habits and habitat better than anyone.
The willow tit, small brown little bird with a black cap. You wouldn't give it a second thought, but it's got a beauty of its own. To me, it's a bird you'd expect to find it in a nice wet wood, but over the last few years it's been getting harder and harder to find. To think it's one of the rarest birds we've got in Britain now, it's a shame. It's fussy about where it breeds. Excavating old rotten trees doesn't help, and anything can predate it. I mean, the woodpecker can just come up and just bang, the whole brood's gone. The habitat it lives in is becoming scarce. Damp woodland, especially in the Tame Valley, there's not a lot left of it. So we're trying, hopefully, to enhance the habitat, get a few more birds coming into the area and breed, and try and get that nice little corridor of birds up and down the Tame that they can interact, so we don't just get that little isolated pocket here and isolated pocket there.
So there's lots of good birds, but the 2 that are always probably the ones you want to see are the lesser spotted woodpecker and the willow tit. So we did get to a point where we were quite good for willow tits, and then there's a national decline and they started declining. So we don't want to lose those. It's fundamental to the whole management and love of the reserve, really. So we started to work more consciously at managing the woodland for willow tit, leaving stumps and wetting the woodland up, which means you get some muddy paths in the winter and you got to wear your wellies, but it's that's what the birds need. We don't want to tidy up too much. One year I think a willow tit got ousted by a marsh tit. The marsh tit got predated by a great spotted woodpecker, and the great spotted woodpecker got predated by a sparrowhawk. So it showed a little change of events that you can't, sometimes you have no control over, and we don't want to control that. So it's interesting to see what the willow tits will use for nest sites. There's various woods that they use, but their preference here, we have a lot of silver birch, so they will use, but they'll go down to stuff that's even sort of arm width size, and quite sometimes we found them down in stumps as like knee level, but we have found nests in elder, in a dead elder and dead alder that have been up to 2 meters high. We've got footage of the birds excavating. It's almost like they know what is perfect for their nest hole for that year. So we have seen that they haven't excavated some holes and then come back to them the following year. I'm not sure it's the males or the females who eventually decide which nest is used, but they will. That shows you the key of having plenty of dead wood. I pick a mix of trees and dead wood. The birds choose. Again, I think there's huge amounts we don't know. We've seen them harvesting burdock seeds. Obviously, they're taking sunflower seeds from the feeder, and one of the bird watchers was noticing that they take the sunflower seeds and stash them into the stems on the reed beds, storing those seeds. But one of the other key things with ladywalk as well is that lots of areas are left for wild seeds. So it's not just what's in the woodland. You can see the birds harvesting in the open areas. Once we know they are setting up a nest site, we tend to leave them to it. But to see young fledged willow tit, last year I think we found at least 3 pairs of fledged willow tits, and I think everybody who saw them was chuffed to bits, because it's the next generation. Where they spread to, where they go, is some may stay here, some will go further afield if they survive, but that's the bit that I enjoy is knowing that a team of us, because it's not just one person, there's a team of us working to try and keep a small little bird in an area, and to spread is what's the key for us, and seeing them breed is really good.
In the coming vlogs, we'll be following closely the fortunes of our willow tits at Ladywalk and along the Tame Valley. In next month's vlog 3, we're going to look closely at the individual high-impact elements that will hopefully, in short and longer terms, see us pull our willow tit population back from the brink. But we'll need help along the way, and want you to know that on a tree by a river, we'll be reaching out in the future so that we can all make this happen.
Saving this bird means a lot, not only to me, to the whole birding community in this area. We've got a good crew of volunteers at Ladywalk. Middleton has got a nice crew, and together hopefully we get a few more volunteers in and get this habitat right for them.
In its essence, the main reserve is only a 100-acre site, and the rest of it that we're starting to manage around the outskirts probably doubles the size of that. But that's where the key lies. It's not just about keeping willow tits for Ladywalk. We love having them here, we love managing it for them. But if we all want willow tits to prosper, then that's got to spread throughout the valley and other places.